Hello, 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 and Happy New Year. I want to thank you all for coming to our channel over here, Starbase Centaur 4210. And we are going to take this time to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And for many of my fellow Trekkers, DS9 is one of our favorite um, Star Trek series. My second favorite to the original. And I remember watching DS9 when it first aired. It was a big family gathering. We all got together and had dinner made, and we put up the Federation flag, and it was my parents and my cousins, and we just, and my auntie and my uncle, and we all grew up in a Star Trek family. So, Star Trek was always in our house. And we were so excited about um, this third incarnation because I've always been a fan of star bases. I mean, when we would watch the NASA channel, I love to watch anything about the space stations and the spacewalks they would do and the various functions that they would do on a space station. And I mean, I enjoy watching that as a young person. So growing up, I always maintained my fascination for um, star bases and space stations. So when I found out that the third incarnation for Star Trek was going to center on a space station, I was most happy, most thrilled. And I just always loved the idea of like a city in the galaxy. And that's what a space station represents. It represents this city, this place where there's life and action and movement. And you have the military and the civilian, you have Starfleet, you have other species, you have other Federation planets, and I do envision the future, our future space stations is going to be just like on Star Trek. You're going to have people coming from all over. There's going to be all kind of activity going on. There's going to be shops, and there's going to be bars and restaurants, as well as all kind of great scientific discoveries going on. And it's just going to be this hubble of activity and action in the galaxy. So, I look forward to the day when this will, it will no longer just sci-fi. It'll really take on a greater reality in our lives. The more NASA does with the space stations, the more they build on it, the more they work on it, the more they advance the functions and all of the missions that's going to be done on the space station. Is going to be just really, really exciting to see. So, what I wanted to do in my own celebration of the 30th anniversary of Deep Space Nine, I love the relational aspect of Deep Space Nine. I love how it wasn't a thing where you just appear on the planet, you do some good, and then you just leave the people. I like how they took the time to build relationships. I love all of the dichotomy. I love all of the diversity. I love all the special situations that Starfleet had to deal with between maintaining peace with Bajor, helping Bajor to recover after the occupation. That occupation was a long, treacherous ordeal for the Bajoran people. And they called on Starfleet once they gained their freedom. They called on Starfleet to come in and help them. And they had this glorious space station at the mouth of this amazing throughway, intergalactic highway known as the wormhole. And these two pieces of important property would definitely help to set Bajor as a powerful planet in the Federation as well as just in the galaxy to begin with. Even though they came from a place of slavery and being occupied after gaining their freedom, they started to flourish as a planet, and it was just amazing. There was a lot to deal with. Captain Sisko had a lot to deal with in trying to balance his duties with trying to also understand the Bajoran people, their philosophy, their religion, their government, and how it's structured, and maintaining also a delicate balance with their former occupiers, who they still had to have some type of interaction with, speaking of the Cardassian, of course. But then, you know, as we progress and we see this situation come about, along with dealing with the everyday life on the space station, we see now with the incoming of the Dominion and the Dominion War, we saw additional type of relationships being formed where Federation planets and other planets that thought they were not getting involved with the war became involved with the war because it's almost like the Dominion took upon this whole Nazi type of mentality of wanting to control the whole entire universe because that in doing so they felt it would keep themselves safe as a race of people and would ensure their survival. And of course that just wasn't going to happen because, you know, we folks on earth, we like our freedom, so that whole domination thing just wasn't going to work. And of course the mighty Federation and the mighty planet of Earth had to lead the way in destroying the Dominion's mission to control the universe around them and to subjugate as many people and planets as they can. This is the part that I want to kind of parlay my experience being in the military. I used a lot of the D Space Nine episodes that happened through the Dominion War as a source of encouragement for myself and for many of my battle buddies, some who were familiar with the D Space Nine series and some who were not. So when I think about, you know, DS9 and that whole Dominion War series, I have these wonderful reflections of my time in the military. So I want to share that with you guys. And just you know, in my own celebration of DS9 and how it has impacted my life and touched my life. The story arcs, the actors, the behind the scene people. Throughout my years of going to the conventions, I got to meet a lot of the actors, major actors, minor actors, behind the scenes people, and hope to, you know, I like to talk more with the behind the scenes people. So we hope to have some interviews coming up with that. And it's just really, really wonderful. Just all the people who work hard to make this series great. Iris Stephen Bear and all of the writers and all of the producers and makeup people and visual effects people. It's just an amazing, amazing piece of work as far as I'm concerned. One of the most amazing pieces of work on film or TV. And I'm always going to cherish this series. And there's an episode that just seems to be able to speak to, and this is typical of Star Trek episodes. Anything you're going through in life, anything you're experiencing, there's a Star Trek episode that can give you a source of encouragement. So part of the reason why we formed our fan group and we mimicked after a space station is because, like I said, my love is for the space station. And it's so cool because in my group, we have those that do the Starfleet military thing. And then we have those who, in their own little pretense fantasy world, they pretend to be a shopkeeper on the star base and they have their shop and they have their goods that they sell. And then we have some who are like, they have their own holosuite entertainment they offer. And then we have folks in the group, they are like their own captains of their own ship, of their own made up entities. So it's just a lot of fun. But for those of you who are not familiar with the Starbase, we are based here in New York, but we have some outposts in other states. So we call them outposts. And we have DC um, and New Jersey, Connecticut, and Colorado. And so, you know, we all just hang out and we do Zoom activities, we do live meetups, we do charity. So we just have a lot of fun and enjoying our Star Trek. And we make it a point to keep Star Trek, you know, in front of the public and the things that we do. So whatever events and activities we do, we love to wear our uniforms to places that we go. And we love to participate in conventions. We do panels and we showcase, we have a fan table at a lot of conventions. And, you know, we just love to share with people why we love Star Trek and in particular Deep Space Nine. And, you know, that's how we get folks to join in with us. So going back to my time in the military, I joined the New York Guard 3 weeks after 9/11. And so when I think back on Star Trek DS9, I think about different elements of DS9 and my experience in the military. And so I want to start with when I joined. When I joined the military, this whole thing with Kira became a whole new thing for me. Like I've always loved the Kira Nerys character, but when I joined the military, that character really spoke volumes to me. Being a woman, joining the military, fighting to defend your land after they just got attacked, so the whole Kira Nerys character, her nuance, her passion, and her brilliance really inspired me and talked volumes to me. And it was a source of encouragement during the time of my military service. When I think about Captain Sisko, he reminds me greatly of uh, my colonel, Colonel Kinnebrew, had a lot of Cisco qualities, and Captain Cisco had a lot of Colonel Kinnebrew qualities. Um, they were soft-spoken men, strong men, Black men who, were in charge of mass numbers of people and property and supplies, and they had their missions that they had to do during an uneasy time in their military service, in their military command. And just like Captain Cisco, I think about my colonel. He always was good at encouraging his troops and keeping on point with us and keeping us abreast of what's going on and always being concerned about our well-being, pushing us to be the best that we, can be, and just making sure that our unit always stayed together and we cared about each other. He knew how to mobilize a unit. And it didn't matter if you had special needs or anything like that. It seemed like he would know everything about everybody. So he would know who had high blood pressure. He would know who was supposed to take their medicine at a certain time. And that was so encouraging to us as officers and NCOs because talk about a true example of leadership. My colonel was everything you would want in a military leader. And that's the way I look at Captain Cisco. He's everything you would want in a military leader. He knows how to, you know, admit when he's wrong. And when he does it in a way that doesn't make you question his ability to lead. But at the same time, it teaches you that we always are learning and always are growing. And he takes the time to listen, and he takes the time to figure out, what is the best way to handle a situation? What is the best strategy that I can put forth to resolve a situation? And then he's steadfast and unwavering. So when I think of Captain Cisco, I think of my colonel. And those two men, the character Captain Cisco and my colonel really impact my military career and impact my time in the military and gave me fine examples of what it means to be a leader and leadership and having leadership qualities. So that's something that I really, really, really hold dear. And I love my colonel. We still stay in contact. He's a wonderful man. And so I would even share Deep Space Nine episodes with him and just crack up. He would love to watch them, and then we would talk about them. And it was just really, really a wonderful experience. When I think about from the pictures that you saw, I have a picture with the promenade crew. And when I think about the promenade crew, I think about my unit. My unit that I joined is called the Harlem Hellfighters. And 369. And if you know about the history of the Harlem Hellfighters, they were like an amazing Black unit. They did a lot of butt kicking over in Europe, and they took a lot of flack, but they came home with a lot of unappreciated effort. That later on in life, there were awards that were given to members of their unit that should have been given to them when they came home from service. Um, but they have an amazing history. They're known for kicking butt and taking numbers. So I was very proud to be a part of that unit stationed up at Harlem, at the Harlem Armory. And and we were close as a unit. We did everything together. We trained together, we went on missions together. And even when we weren't serving, we hung out with each other. We would meet up and we would just take time to get to know each other's families and be involved in each other's lives. And so that was a really great experience. And so when I think about Deep Space Nine and I think about the Promenade crew and how they grew to be close and how they grew to be involved in each other's lives, that's another takeaway that I had from DS9 when I reflect on my military career and my military unit, it's just, a thing where this kind of bond that you form with fellow warriors, it stays with you. It really does stay with you. Um, because we came together during a time of war when our nation was attacked, you know, we didn't have a lot of hangout time, but in between those missions and in between serving, we would find the time to get to know each other and to grow together as a unit and help one another grow as soldiers, no matter what our rank was. And so I'm going to always cherish that kind of brotherhood and sisterhood that you form when you join the military. Um, One of the most memorable things also is when I graduated basic. I graduated with distinguished graduate honors, and I remember when I got my first official uniform with all of the bling on it, all of my rank and everything, and I was so touched. I was just so happy about it. I got my uniform because there's a uniform you wear at basic, and then there's the uniform when you graduate. So and when I think about my gray and black uniform, when I first had my gray and black uniform made, the one piece, my auntie helped me to make it, and I remember when I when I put it on, it's like I felt the same pride as when I got my official uniform after I graduated basic in the military, and and I take such good care of that uniform. It's dry clean. It's put in a bag with plastic. And all everything is there. The tunic, the ranks, so and the pips. So I laugh at myself because I'm like, I treat it as if it's a real military uniform because to me it is. It represents a time where one of the reasons why we call DS9 such a dark series because we represent a time where Earth is attacked, and that uniform represents a time where we had to take a break from our normal Star Trek mission and fight for our freedom, and fight for our way of life. So, and that's basically how it was for me. How I looked at the situation during 9/11, we were, in my opinion, fighting for our freedom and fighting for our way of life. I mean, I know a lot of people have different views about it, but to me as a soldier, that's how I felt. So that's why so much of that Dominion War series really impacts me when I think about it. Um, I think about Quark's Bar. Even Quark's Bar brings up wonderful military memorable moments. As an NCO, we had our NCO club, and I think of the good times there with fellow soldiers, sharing stories, sharing information about missions coming up, sharing funny times during training and pitfalls and injuries and things like that, and just sharing a lot of good memories and taking that time of togetherness to encourage each other. And when you look at those times when during the war series, our Starfleet warriors were able to get together and have a drink sometime and have a toast to winning a particular battle or anything like that, and just encourage each other. Um, that definitely brings back wonderful memories of when I served and when we would get together as NCOs and as officers and just be together and encourage each other and just reminisce on what it meant to go through training, what it meant to do missions, and what it meant to interact with military units from other states and even other countries like Canada, Finland, England, and just to know that we were all together and supporting each other during this time, it was just really, really wonderful. Um, Another thing, certain characters remind me of certain people that I had relationships with in the military. So Tony Todd, the Captain Kern character, for some reason reminds me so much of my drill instructor. My drill instructor was tall, he was boisterous, he spoke with great authority, and, and he was mean, but at the same time he was stern, but at the same time he was caring, and and he was a motivator, and he was someone that would push you beyond your limit, and even when you felt that you couldn't go on anymore, he would push you even more, and he would compliment you for allowing him to push you and to be pushed towards making you a better person. And that's what I love about the Tony Todd character, because that's what I take from Captain Kern. I take that that he's about his duty, he's about his troops, he's about command, he's about integrity. And so my drill instructor, I think of him when I think of the Tony Todd character. Um, Also during this time, I was taking care of my dad. My dad was not feeling well, and um, and so when I had free time, when I was home, uh, I would spend time with my father and everything like that, and I would spend time taking care of him. So when I think about the episode "Ties of Blood and Water" with Nana, she was her Kira character was taking care of a Cardassian who was dying, who was like sort of like a father figure, and he didn't have like a great background. He was involved in some things, but Dr. Bashir encouraged her to be by his side during his last days, and so I think about my time being with my dad because he passed during my time of military service. So while I was in the Marine, and he was so proud because he's a Navy guy. He didn't like that I joined the Army, but that was our little private father-daughter joke. But he nevertheless was so proud of me being in the military. He drove me to take the ASVAB, and when it came time to come to my basic training graduation, he was there with the family. He was screaming and clapping the loudest. So so my dad was very proud that of all of his sons, I'm the one that went into the military. So his sons, a lot of them are law enforcement, but he wanted someone to go into the military. So his daughter, his youngest daughter, took up the mantle. So, and dad was always the type of man that would share with me from time to time, not often, but from time to time, his service in the Korean War. And so when Star Trek came out, when he was young and he was in the military, between that and Vietnam, he just loved the whole um, Starfleet command structure. He loved the warriors, how they went forward into the galaxies, and they traveled all over, and they had their mission, they had their protocols, their standard, they had their principles, and he loved that about Star Trek. So that's why we grew up in the Star Trek home, because he made sure that we watched some Star Trek. So that episode really, really touched me. Also, what I liked about that episode is it showed how even though Gamora had issues and had a bad reputation, he was a Cardassian, he did some things during the occupation. Um, so during the occupation, even though he did horrible things, like I said, Dr. Bashir encouraged Kira to be by his side during his last days. What my takeaway from that was, as an NCO, I remember we had a guy in our unit, and he had got transferred to a different unit, a few different units before he came to ours, and he was kind of like a really hard person to deal with, and he was hard at following orders, and he was just difficult, had a really very difficult personality, and we bumped heads so many times. I mean, it was crazy. I used to always have to write him up, and he would just be belligerent and just, but he was smart and he knew how to do his job, but he just had a personality issue. And I remember he was in my squad, and I remember when we did a mission and he had got injured, and we were out of state, and my unit was getting ready to come back, and so they were going to just kind of leave him at the hospital where he was, and then you know have his family come down to be with him, and I was like, and I just couldn't do that. I felt like, this guy is under my command. And even though we bump heads, I have to look out for my troop. So I had told my unit, you go ahead along and I'm going to stay here. And they were like, oh, why are you going to stay? I mean, he doesn't like you. You don't like him. And, he's always a hard problem. And he's always giving you a hard time and everything like that. You don't have to stay. I mean, he's in your squad, but, he's got his family's on the way to take care of him. And I said, I'm going to wait for his family to come. So while I was waiting for his family, we got a time to talk and everything like that. And so he shared some things about his childhood that kind of affect how he interacts with people and relates with people. So this gave me like a whole new awareness of, you know, who he is and who and how to deal with him. And I said to myself, one of the things I notice on my job is that a lot of managers, if they like you, then they want to, hook you up and they want to, do extra things for you and push for you to get a promotion. And if they don't like you, let's say your personalities don't click, then they just kind of ignore you and they don't encourage you or anything like that. And one of the things that being an NCO in the military taught me is that it's not about who you like or who you don't like. It's not about you get along better with this person versus this person. When you are a non-commissioned officer, you are in charge of a unit of people and their lives is under your command. Their lives is in your hands. Okay. So it's not about like or dislike. Whether you like them or not, you are responsible for them. You have to motivate them. You have to care for them. It's your job to look out for them. So he even said to me, "I'm surprised you here, Sarge. I know we don't get along. I'm surprised you here. I'm surprised you didn't just leave me and go home with the rest of the unit." And I says, "No, because even though we bump heads, you are still my soldier, and I'm going to stay here by your side until your family gets here." So I think about this episode, Ties of Blood and Water, when I reflect back on that moment and the moments that I was able to spend time with my dad during my military service before he passed away because he was just so happy to see me in the military. So again, this is just, my reflections of different things dealing with DS9 that touched my life during my military career. Um, I think about also my my MOS, my military occupational specialty. When I joined, everyone pretty much was doing military police. So we were assigned at Ground Zero, we were assigned security at the armories and things like that, and on the basis, securing the supplies and securing where the troops were stationed and different things like that. And then later on, I got into communication. So I became a communication NCO. And so we were involved with the communication network here in New York that stretched from from New York City to New York State to the Army headquarters in DC. And we would set up antennas and we would do all of the techie stuff that we had to do for my communication missions. And so the where DS9 comes in with that is I think about the episode The Siege at AR 558. That whole thing was about a communication array that they had from the enemy that they wanted to, take and study and everything like that. And I thought about how and with Star Trek from Nichelle Nichols' character, Lieutenant Horror, how important the commo officer is. The commo officer is always important. Commo officers and NCOs always important to the mission of the unit. And the way they fought so hard for that communication array, and as you know in that episode, that's where Nog lost his leg. And but when I think about the community, all through Star Trek, you hear that constant term, the communication network, the communication array. So every time I would, do my commo thing, I would pretend in my mind that, I'm doing some Starfleet commo kind of mission and everything like that. And it was so funny because I even put up pictures of different communication arrays from the Federation in my billet. And my fellow battle buddies were looking and said, "What is that on your wall? What's that a picture of?" And I said, "Oh, that's the communication arrays from Star Trek." And they were like, "Oh my God." They said, "Yeah, you're definitely a commo fan." So commo is short for communications. So, again, these are just funny, reflective moments that I think about when I think about DS9 in my career. Speaking also of that episode with the siege at AR 558. Again, that was the episode when Nog lost his leg. and I remember showing that episode at the MWR, that's the Morale, Welfare, and Recreation unit. All military bases and military brigades have a MWR unit. And I remember showing that episode out at Fort Hamilton at the MWR office, and we were just hanging out, and it was a few wounded warriors there from the local hospital, and so we were just watching that episode, and it's interesting because some of the troops was like, "Wow, I didn't know Star Trek got down like that," because we watched AR 558 and then It's Only a Paper Moon, because that definitely goes into post-traumatic stress and how how hard it is when you get injured like that in the military. And part of also what I would do is I would do volunteer work at the military hospitals, and we would go to Walter Reed sometime, but mostly I would do volunteer work at the hospitals here in the city. And, so you see the warriors who have lost limbs and have prosthetics and everything, and the emotional toil and the mental and psychological toil that it brings on them, and how they have to, really fight to stay strong and to deal with this new journey in their life, going on without a limb that they're so used to having. And there's a lot of emotional stress. There's a lot of that they have to deal with, a lot of therapy, and there's a lot that the family has to deal with. So it's like this episode really caught my attention, and it really showed the awesomeness of how strong, incredibly strong these warriors are to survive and to go on despite what has happened to them. And I will always cherish that, and I will always cherish the moments watching that episode with my fellow troops and how they responded to it. Um, and I did turn some folks into DS9 fans. When Osama bin Laden was caught and executed, I thought about when they captured the Dominion leaders and they brought them to justice. How it was such a freeing moment because the war was over, and now began the whole process of renewal and rebuilding and closure. And I know when Osama was caught and captured and executed, it felt like both in the military and in the civilian population a sense of closure, and people just saying, okay, finally we have some moment of ability to just be at peace and to not always be on edge, because the whole thing with 9/11 was always the fear of continued attacks. And when I when I was stationed at the armory on 68th Street, we had an opportunity. I had talked with the head of the training at New York City Transit. Um, And I had stated that I thought it would be a good idea if there would be some training between New York City Transit's emergency response team and the New York Guards emergency response team, because during 9/11, there was this big concern of the next attack being in the train station. And, that's kind of something that you saw go on a lot in a lot of European countries where their train systems were always attacked. So that's where the concern came. So I talked to the head of training at Transit, I talked to my colonel, and they both agreed it was a great idea. So we did this joint training with the emergency response teams for both entities. And it was really great because we were taken deep underground in the city, and we were shown how to evacuate people, how to take people to the safe houses that's in the subway, and they have blankets and water and first supply and first aid kits, and then there's a communication network system that communication can be done from deep inside the station in the city that goes all the way up to the governor's office. And so we did this training and it was just absolutely, absolutely excellent. And I think about um, one of the things with DS9 is um, all the different planets that had to come together and train together. I think about Red Squad, like we had our little elite units, and we even had our elite cadet units also, like Red Squad. They weren't as crazy as Red Squad, but they were their own elite cadet units, and they would work in conjunction with us for different missions that they were able to come with us on. And so I think about that unity where you have different units and from different states and different countries coming together. Like in DS9, they had the different planets that came together to fight the Dominion War, and they came to be trained by Starfleet to join the fight and join the war effort. And so when I think about how it was doing all this training with different people from different parts of this country and in the world, such a glorious and amazing experience. And again, I would share Deep Space Nine episodes when we were hanging out in the barracks. And I would say, "Hey guys, let's. I want to show you this Star Trek episode." And they were like, "Star Trek, yeah, we watch Star Trek too," in their state or respective country. And I remember I was training with some with the communication team from Canada's military, and we were in the female barracks, and the ladies had Molson's beer. Like I've never had Canadian beer before, but since we were doing commo training and commo missions together, and it was a 2 week mission, um, we were stationed together in the women's barracks, and so they had like keg of Molson. They had like a big thing of Molson beer underneath their bunker, and so I pulled out, a Star Trek episode. Because we had TVs and VCRs there, so I put a Star Trek episode in, and we were drinking beer and we were watching some Deep Space Nine episodes, and they were really impressed. Some of the ladies knew about Star Trek and did watch it, but most of the Canadian women that were in the barracks with us never really watched Star Trek, so they really got into the Deep Space Nine episodes that I was showing. And of course, Kira and Jadzia was definitely, the sheroes, and they definitely, you know, got a lot of respect from these ladies that normally did not watch Star Trek, but really was impressed with the Kira and Jadzia character. So basically, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I wanted to just do a little something to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Deep Space Nine. If you can see, let me show you our T-shirt for the space station. Um, so our T-shirt here, it says Starbase Centaur 4210, and it was designed by my good friend J.R. Poole, and it's here in the background. Um, I just wanted to do a little something to just celebrate my favorite Star Trek series next to the original series, and to just share with you how I had these wonderful moments of reflection on DS9 while I served in the military. As you know, DS9 pretty much was off by then, and but so much of DS9 that Dominion War, like even the Paradise Lost episode, where, all of a sudden Starfleet was on the streets of Earth with big old guns, and I think about how during 9/11, when it was necessary to put military on the streets and in the airports and by the highways and everything, and people, other than in the movie, they never saw that much military, in the civilian world, right there on the streets, right outside your door. And I remember, you know, serving and walking down civilian streets with, your rifle and everything, and just having people look at you like, on the one hand, they're happy to see you because they know you're there to keep them safe. But on the other hand, it's like it was this intrusion into their normal world, and it reminded them that we're at war. Our nation was shocked, you know, to be in a situation where we were attacked like that. And so eventually it became the norm. It became a thing where, and in New York, I love New Yorkers because they'll be shocked about something for a while, but then it becomes the norm. And it's like, oh, hey, yeah, there's troops over there, you know. And next thing you know, at first they were afraid to like come up to, they may say thank you or whatever, but they were kind of like standoffish because, you know, you got these big weapons, you know, and you got these big firearms on in your hands. And then later on, it's like, okay, the big firearms, you know, it doesn't scare them. So they come up and they want to take selfies with you and ask you directions. So I gotta give it to New Yorkers, you know, we definitely know how to bounce back when we have to. You know, we may be shocked and taken aback for a few seconds, but then you know, we bounce back and get back in the flow of things. And whatever we have to deal with, we just deal with. Um, I have to thank the people of New York because a lot of times, you know, we work these long hours and you know, we're going sometimes 2 days straight without sleep. And you don't have time to just change out of your uniform when you do have the opportunity to go home. It's like, oh, okay, I can go home now. I don't have to sleep at the barracks. Boom, I'm going. I'm jumping on the train. And you know, you come on the train or you walk down the street in your uniform, you're getting the thank yous, you're getting the hugs, you go into the store to buy something and someone wants to pay for it. Just really, really wonderful. I have to really say that um, you know, New Yorkers were really wonderful to the troops. Where the armies where we were stationed were always in communities, and the community would come to the armory and bring food. They would bring clothes. They would bring paper for us to write. Our families, they would bring video games. They would bring coffee, tea, and snacks and everything like that, and batteries and just all kind of wonderful things they would bring for Christmas. We had cards from the kids. We had gifts from the church and from the local community, and you know, it was just really wonderful. The local veteran organizations were always there, the armories and on the base, you know, bringing what they could for us. And it was just a really, even though it was a horrible, scary time, um, my time serving during 9/11 has to be one of the most powerful experiences in my life. And I was so glad that I had like all these episodes that came out. Um, you know, you're like, wow, that's amazing. Oh my goodness. Oh, I hope it will never be like that, you know, in our lifetime. And then 9/11 happens and it's like, wow, yeah, this is like the Dominion War come to life, you know? And so that's why I was able to fall back on these episodes and find encouragement and upliftment from them. So, and I was so happy to be able to share with my fellow warriors, and they got it. They got it right away. You know, they totally got into it. And like I said, I was able to get some DS9 recruits and everything. So, just happy anniversary, DS9. Thank you to all of the writers and producers and behind the scenes people. Thank you to all the actors for bringing to life such an amazing um, series with such great story arcs. I don't think the actors, the writers really can ever know how much these episodes really speak to people and how they impacted their lives to the point of, I mean, even helping people to go on with their lives when they feel broken and torn down and confused, um, as well as how these episodes help to add joy to your life. In your moments of joy, there was a D Space Nine episode that you can watch that you can relate to. And I think, the writers, when they're in the writing room, they're writing to make a great story so that it can, be impactful. I don't think they know that um, in their writing, somehow I think the universe uses their words to touch people in a way that they might not have expected. And it probably wasn't something they would think about because they're just, writing to make a good episode and to get it done and get it out there in time and everything like that because they have their deadlines and everything. And I just think when it comes to good writing, um, it is a way good writing can really impact someone's life in a way the writers don't expect. And these actors, the way they bring the words to life, um, their acting impacts people in a way that they don't expect. And and I think that's why Star Trek episodes are so lasting because they're so impactful and they're so relevant and they're so meaningful. And so I just want to think, I know a lot of the actors, they're professionals and they want to do a good job, but I don't think they realize in doing a good job how how their work has such deep and emotional impact on people. And so I just want to thank all the actors for working hard to bring these story arcs to life and bring these characters to life. So once again, happy 30th anniversary, Deep Space Nine. And I look forward to seeing what's going to happen at, the convention in Vegas. I hope they have some special DS9 celebrations going on. So I look forward to that. And I want to wish everyone a happy new year. Please subscribe to our channel. And if you'd like to be on the show, if you want to talk about something, just hit us up. Our link and our email is in the description. So again, happy new year, happy anniversary DS9, and you guys take care and continue to live your best life. All right, bye bye.